Now that your role is live, let's take a look at how tezi pipelines work, what candidates experience, what Max automates, and how Max loops you in for key decisions. We'll start with source candidates using this demo data scientist role. For this role, sourcing is enabled, chat screening is enabled, scheduling is enabled, there is one interview configured, it's an intro call with me, and agentic email replies are not enabled, which is what we recommend for new users. To start getting source candidates into our pipeline, we can review candidates that Max has identified as strong fits for our search criteria. On my sourcing list, let's say I think this senior machine learning engineer is a great fit. I'll schedule them for outreach, and on the scheduled list, I can see that Max will contact them using an AI personalized message on Friday. On my pipeline view, I can see candidates that Max has already contacted. In this case, there is exactly one, Daniel, who was sourced October 15th. When I open Daniel's activity feed, I can see the message that Max sent Daniel. Let's say that Daniel responds. What happens next? First, Max will notify me over email. I can sign into Tezi and then navigate to Daniel's activity feed to read his message. In Daniel's activity feed, we see that he said, "This sounds pretty interesting. I'd love to learn more." Based on this message, Max recommends advancing, and I agree. Daniel's next stage is the chat screen because I configured the chat screen to apply to source candidates. Down below, we see a nice preview of the chat screen invite email that Max will send Daniel. Now that I've advanced Daniel, Max will send the chat screen invite in just a few minutes. Here is the email that Max sent Daniel to invite him to the chat screen, and I signed up. And now this is my / Daniel's chat with Max. Max will ask Daniel the questions that I provided Max during role setup. For example, the first question is, why are you on the market? For the purposes of this video, I'm going to speed through these questions as Daniel, but hopefully as you ride along, this gives you a sense of what it's like to complete the chat screen as a candidate. After I've answered Max's questions, I actually have the opportunity to ask Max questions. For example, maybe I'll ask, what types of projects would I get to work on? Max will answer this question using the role and company context that I provided during role setup. I'm going to go ahead and tell Max that I'm out of questions, and that ends the chat screen. It's time for me, in my recruiter / hiring manager persona, to review the chat screen. When we load tasks now, there's a task to decision a candidate, who we know to be Daniel. This takes me to pipeline view, and then I will go to Daniel's activity feed. In the activity feed, I can see the full transcript of Max's chat with Daniel. I still think that Daniel is a great fit, so I will advance him. From my role configuration, I know that the next stage is the introductory call with me, and so in a few minutes, Max will send the scheduling invite email. Now let's switch over to Daniel's side. When he receives this email and he clicks this button, he will land on this next screen. Let's provide some basic information, including phone number, and confirm our time zone. Then we'll pick a time that works for the call. And voila, our interview is now confirmed, and both Daniel and I, as in the interviewer version of me, will receive calendar invites. In a few days, I'll interview Daniel, and I'll have a task in Tezi to decision him. Depending on what tier of Tezi I'm using, I may also have the option to submit a scorecard. In this case today, I'm going to go ahead and decision him. Let's say that Daniel did well in the interview, so I want to advance him to the next stage. Since I only have one interview round configured in Tezi, the next stage is quote-unquote offer. I'll advance him there now. Now, obviously, this is very artificial. I probably have more interview rounds in my process. What it really means is Max will take no further actions on Daniel, and I'll need to manage the rest of his process outside of tezi. This gives me maximum flexibility to tailor his process as needed. In the last segment of today's demo, let's use this product designer role to see what the recruiting process looks like for an inbound applicant with Max. If you're using tezi with an ATS integration, this includes applicants to your ATS JD. So as you can see, 2 inbound candidates have just applied. Let's refresh and see Max's evaluations. All right, the first thing that I notice is that Tom is now in the chat screen stage. Let's click into his activity feed to see why. So expanding this status update, you can see that Max analyzed Tom's profile and based on the rationale here, decided that he was a good fit. Because I have chat screening enabled for inbound candidates on this role, Max then automatically advanced Tom to the chat screen. If I hadn't configured the chat screen, after Max thought that Tom was a good fit, Max would have emailed me to have me review Tom and decide whether or not to advance him to an interview. All right, so let's go check out that other candidate. What happened to Yvette? From this entry here, we can see that Max evaluated her and concluded that she doesn't match the location and startup experience requirements. It's important to note, though, that Max didn't notify Yvette. This email down here is just a standard thank you for applying email. In this example, I'll pretend that, actually Yvette has a stellar background for what we want, and I'm interested in knowing whether she's open to relocation. So I'm going to override Max's recommendation, and I'll advance her to the chat screen. Okay, that's it for today's tutorial. Let us know if you have any questions.